So everybody knows about that, right? That scene in Naruto where Madara got revived. He was like, "Oh shit, I'm alive again. This is great." He got the adrenaline rush. He was like, "I'm ready to go. I need to catch these tail beasts real quick because he could still be killed, right?" That's what you guys gotta know. He had a sense of urgency about him, right? In that moment, he was like, "I'm alive again. I can't get caught off guard." Boom. He was doing all he could in that moment to get the eyeball and then grab these tail beasts so he can do what he wanted to do, right? And he was handling these tail beasts, right? But now we're gonna have a character from Yu Yu Hakusho take his spot. And this character is Yoko Kurama. Now I made the video already about Yoko Kurama versus the Nine Tails Kurama. Just those two fighting each other. But now I'm gonna put him in the scenario where he's fighting against 1 through 7, just 1 through 7. He ain't gonna fight the Nine Tails and the Eight Tails too. He's gonna fight 1 through 7. In that scenario, they're all manifested. The 1 tails, 2 tails, 3 tails, 4 tails, 5 tails, 6 tails, 7 tails. They're all there, and he's just standing there by himself. He has no backup. All right. He just has all the abilities he has. End the series, Yoko Kurama. At a power level of, the power level was pretty damn high. And that power level that Sachi had on him was not even the goddamn man, that wasn't even his full power. And it was pretty damn high. So we got Yoko Kurama in the series, Yoko Kurama versus all those tail beasts. And who wins in this situation? He drops down in there. Boom. Shikaku tries to do some shit. He tries to box him in with the Great Sam Mausoleum, right? Boom. Kurama already planted seeds somewhere. And he grabs his neck and he's like, "I can't hold him no more." He's getting choked out by some plants. And then Matatabe tries to come in. Boom. This guy has some hands too. Now his hands ain't as good as Yusuke's hands are, but he can put his hands on people and shit. And he's not weak as you think. He's planetary kind of guy. So when he runs up on these tail beasts, he's gonna be handling him much like Madara did. Boom. They're going far. Handling like them, they're just some ordinary, pets. Like you have a big dog in your backyard and he's playing games and you're just like, "I'm done with you." You throw him against some shit. Kind of like that. Boom. This Chome, right, is trying to use hypnotics on this guy. It won't work. Kurama already has those kind of moves in his bag with the singing tree. He'll catch one of them off guard with that shit. He has multiple kinds of plants, and then he has the man-eating plants. They'll come out and they'll grab Matatabe. Probably the 5 tails. The 5 tails is that horse one. That one's gonna get grabbed up, bit. Those legs are not that strong. And it'll be like, "No." Boom. Clamp down, jaws on that. Who's gonna get hit by that singing tree? Mm, 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 mm. He'll put Son Goku in the singing tree, right? Because Son Goku, out of all 7 of them, he actually presents the most of a threat. Um, but he could still plant the demon seed inside of him and have that shit grow. And once it's ready to grow, plants start growing out of their eyes and shit like that. They're still, animals and shit. That can't be taken out of them or anything like that. Once he plants that in them, they're gonna be like, "Oh fuck." They'll be like, "Ah, this plan's going on. You know, now that will take some time to take effect. He'll be running, dodging these people. He'll probably have them run into each other. We'll say the three tails runs into like the six tails. Saigen's like, oh no, you were supposed to hit him, not me. Boom, it comes in, tries to hit Kurama, and instead he hits, the six tails. And remember about Kurama, Yoko Kurama. We're not talking about that Kurama. He's not in this fight. He's just somewhere else, right? He's inside of Naruto still, right? They're all getting dealt with by this guy with silver and white hair. Let's say he just lets one of them eat him because he's like just like that, right? He's like smart enough, experienced enough to handle this situation, man. He has more experience than Madara. Guess how old Kurama is? Thousands of years old. And he's lived the life of a demon and the life of a human being. Both. He's one of those characters that, if we had a remake of Yu Yu Hakusho, people would probably like this guy. He might not be the most loved character, but people would respect his power and shit, I think. And obviously, if you've watched Yu Yu Hakusho, you probably respect his power. I'm talking about Yoko Kurama in this video, man. you know, he smokes these tail beasts, and then and I'll say this too. Let me say this real quick. Um, if Naruto and Killer Bee tried to get involved, I don't think he'd win then because Naruto still has he don't have Sage of Six Paths mode yet, but he has all that, and then they have all the other shinobis there too. That's too much for Kurama to handle, but he could fight those tail beasts. And the question for this video is if he could handle that shit, like 1 through 7 in that situation. He's dropped in there and he has to fight all 7 of those. He's getting out with the dub. I'll tell you probably mid to high diff on that one because I know this about the tail beast. When Hagoromo, and see, this was never shown or anything, but he talked, about Kurama and shit, right? Because he knew about him. He had most of that chakra from the 10 tails when he sectioned it off. He was like, oh shit, I was trying to give him all equal amounts, and then I have like this large surplus of like chakra still. The last guy gets all the chakra, and that is the 9 tails Kurama. So in the situation, those 7-tailed beasts, they don't got it like that. Not against this animal. Now let's say this, all right, for you not to fans, but what about a combined tail beast bomb? A combined tail beast bomb. Kurama can survive that. He can survive because let me tell you, he surrounds trees around him. He can produce a lot of trees, right? So in his last fight against Shigure, he summoned a whole bunch of trees, right? And that's like a lot of trees. Now that takes care of some of that, right? It takes care of some of that impact. Now he's still getting hit by some of that. I ain't saying he's not taking any damage from it, but he ain't gonna be dead from one of those. One regular one, he ain't gonna be dead from that. And then if they combined, like I said, he can put up a whole bunch of plants, trees. They grow, and not just like weak ass trees, man, but a lot. And I don't even think he'd let them get to that point because of the way this man thinks. He'll see that they're charging up energy and like they stopped. Why'd they stop? His mind works like that. His mind's like, he's like, how am I gonna deal with this? This animal was, ferocious 1 minute, now he's sitting there. Why is he doing that? Boom. this guy's trying to, conjure up a massive energy. I can sense that and I can see that. Now let me see, come over here and like, fuck this guy's concentration up. Take out his legs, all that. But for you guys, you're like, oh my god, and I'll tell you, this does some damage to him. I didn't say it wouldn't do damage to him. But he ain't gonna be down for the count because this is Yoko Kurama. No, when it's Yoko Kurama, it's the silver hair. And the silver hair comes out, shit, everybody knew about that. They were like, oh shit, it's the legendary bandit Yoko Kurama. They were all like, oh shit, we thought he was gone. And he's like, no, 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 I'm still here. In this scenario, he's working those seven. Now if the 8 and 9 tails get involved and they're going all out, he'll probably lose then. He'll lose that. But when we're looking at just those seven, he's taking them out. They'll be out. Like they'll die. He'll kill them and then their energy will just, I don't know, they'll have to, do something. But they'll be going out to reincarnate somewhere. I don't know how that shit works. Naruto hasn't gotten to that point yet because Kurama died in Boruto and he hasn't shown up yet. But yeah, man, I got Kurama handling that business, man. If he's the one dropped in that situation, I'll have other people drop in on that situation, from different animes. I'll let you know. But I wanted to set some light on some Yu Yu Hakusho characters on Wednesday because that's what I do. And then you watch Yu Yu Hakusho and you tell me, what you think about that. But let me know in the comments what you think. And be cool, on the corner, y'all.